Hello and welcome back in, everyone. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and welcome back to the Mad Science Lab podcast. Today, we welcome in Brendon Booth, and he is here to help us with some sleepers, breakouts, and busts. How's it going, man?
Booth.
Nice to have you.
Brendon Booth, yeah.
I just looked at it in your title right now. I have both spelt wrong, and I don't know how. You could tell I'm a little off, hey? I have it
No
written
worries.
right in front of me, and somehow I think it must have auto-corrected on me. I looked and I'm like, his name's not Brendon Booth. And then I looked and I said, we're off to a great start.
That's all right. I'm brand new, so people find me. My name doesn't matter anyway yet.
No, we've had this conversation. You were on the mock draft the other day, and I knew your name.
Yeah, Brendon Booth. And you can find me on Twitter at BigBonedFFB. So yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Yeah, where are you writing? Where are you doing your work right now?
So I just joined the team at DynastyProsFootball.com, at Dynasty Pros FF on Twitter. And my first piece is going to be dropping on that website on Friday, and then more in the pipeline. And I also have a Substack newsletter at Big Boned, the Fantasy Burn, and that you can link to that on my Twitter account.
Geez, your first week already, you're writing an article. We've got guys at the league winners who've been in the group chat for like 6 months and haven't written anything.
That's that's a problem sometimes with content creators.
We had this conversation the other day among some of the senior management there saying there's a lot of guys in this group chat and not a whole lot of guys doing anything. So
yeah,
it's nice to see someone who actually works. I wrote 3 articles today with COVID, so I'm doing my best to keep going. We will get right into it here instead of me chatting and screwing up names. Well, if it makes you feel any better, I screw up everyone's name, so don't take it personal.
I don't take it personal at all. And my name has been mispronounced my entire life. Brandon, it's always misspelled as Brendan, so I'm not worried about it.
All right, we have your guy in the wrong format. I'm off to a solid start today. There we go.
We're good.
First player is your sleeper. That would be Rams wide receiver Van Jefferson. Man, did you go down there on a sleeper? Way down that list. Fantasy Pros projection has him as wide receiver 71. Negligible rushing stats, 42.4, 42.2. Apparently, I'm dyslexic. Receptions, 599.1 receiving yards. They couldn't have just given him 600. And 3.9 receiving touchdowns. Why is Van Jefferson your sleeper?
All right, well, let's start off with what his numbers looked like in 2021. So in 2021, he had over 800 receiving yards. He was the 4th target in that Rams offense. And Matt Stafford was trying to throw the ball about 700 times per year. Jefferson came out as the wide receiver 36 in fantasy that year. That puts him, if you're in a 3 wide receiver league, that puts him at the bottom of your wide receiver 3. If you play with 3 wide receivers in flex, he's definitely a rosterable and startable player working off those numbers. Now, that team had Robert Woods for a while until he got hurt. That team had Odell Beckham Jr. That team had Cooper Kupp. That team had Tyler Higbee. So there were plenty of targets to go around, and Stafford was just slinging it, and they went to the Super Bowl. Next year, 2022, is supposed to be Jefferson's 3rd year breakout. He sort of broke out as the wide receiver 36 in his 2nd year out of Florida. But last year was supposed to be the year. Well, injuries to him, injuries to Stafford, that kind of got in the way. This year he's coming back. He has an elevated role. What McVay wants to do with Jefferson is have him as the outside receiver. So he's going to be setting up as either the flanker or the split end in most of the formations that they run. He's not coming off the field if they are going to a 2 tight end set. He's the number 2 wide receiver in that offense next to Cooper Kupp, who just so happened to have a hamstring pull yesterday and is 32 years old, and that stuff starts to linger. So Jefferson is on the rise. We look at his pedigree. He came out of Florida. He played with a bunch of NFL players, Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney, and his father is a wide receiver coach for the Carolina Panthers and a long time 11 or 12-year wide receiver in the NFL. So he's got the blood. He's got the profile. He's 6 foot, 200 something pounds. He's ready to have a huge year this year, and he's being targeted or being drafted in the 70s. So for somebody to outplay their ADP, I think the best candidate right now from the wide receiver position is going to be Van Jefferson. He's a wide receiver 2 in a high production offense. He's got a capable quarterback who wants to throw the ball 600 or 700 times. He's got iffy competition behind him. He's got Cooper Kupp, who dealt with an injury last year and is already starting to get banged up in camp. I think if Stafford stays healthy and Van Jefferson stays healthy, Jefferson can absolutely outplay his wide receiver 36 from 2 years ago and get into the top 24 range. I think he's absolutely rosterable, and you can take him as a free agent in redraft. You can take him as a waiver pickup. It's crazy. I'm drafting him everywhere. Scott Fishbowl, the EFCC, everywhere that I see him. I'm taking him in Dynasty. I'm taking him in redraft leagues. I'm grabbing him everywhere.
Yeah, he's going off the board currently as wide receiver 72, 186th overall, which means he's basically a last round pick or he's free. Going in a range where he's just above Tim Patrick, who I'm pretty sure is done for the season. Yeah, it gets pretty dicey down here. So I was looking to see, with him being this far down, I was looking up to see if there was another Rams receiver above him that people were drafting as the wide receiver 2. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's at the top, but there isn't. So they have that gap from Cooper Kupp going as wide receiver 3 all the way down to him in the 70s. That's it.
Absolutely. And I mean, Higbee is going to demand some targets. Puka Nacua is showing out in camp, but he's a rookie, and Sean McVay tends to not give rookies the target share that they need to be successful. Nacua might break that. I mean, Nacua
he's
might
the
be
next highest drafted. He's 95 at 249 overall.
Sure. And that just that begs you to invest in the Rams offense, because even if they're a terrible team, even if Stafford winds up only, throwing 550 attempts this year, fantasy wise, those 3 guys, Nacua, Jefferson, Kupp, Jefferson, and Higbee, all could totally show out. So that was my on Substack. That was my Flag Plant Friday article that I put out last Friday. So go ahead and check that out. And there's more justification. In 2021, he was one of the top deep threats in the entire NFL. So there are definitely analytical reasons to get into, but at this point, I'm just looking at where he fits in the lineup, and he's a total smash for me.
Well, moving on to your breakout, and I hope you're right about this because I own him in a work dynasty league, and boy, do I really need a quarterback this year, so I hope he's good. That would be your breakout of Washington quarterback Sam Howell, projected by Fantasy Pros as QB 30, 2,968.7 passing yards, 16.3 touchdowns to 11.9 interceptions, 207.9 on the ground with an additional 1.7 rushing touchdowns. Why do you think Sam Howell breaks out in 2023?
Fantasy-wise, as a quarterback, Sam Howell brings one of the things that we look for in young guys, and that's the ability to run. When he was at North Carolina, he had pretty good rushing numbers, and he had a great game rushing the ball against the Cowboys last year, threw a touchdown. In the preseason last year, he led all rookie quarterbacks in rushing yards. So the games that he's played after college, he has shown that he's going to use his feet some. He also enters an offense where he's got Antonio Gibson, who's a former wide receiver, as a running back to catch passes. He's got Brian Robinson to keep the defense off balance with runs in the middle. And then he's looking at a wide receiving core of Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, who's an absolute route stud, and
Curtis Samuel.
So he's got weapons. He's fully got the capability to run for 500 to 650 yards, throw the ball for 3,000 to 3,500 yards. How much less production is that from Justin Fields last year? So give this guy 17 games, give him an average of 250 yards a game throwing the ball, give him an average of 65 to 85 yards per game rushing, some rushing touchdowns and 25 passing touchdowns, and he's immediately a rosterable quarterback in superflex leagues and absolutely a dynasty asset.
Don't feel bad about not knowing who the wide receiver 3 on the Commanders was. Do you want to know why I had it ready on the top of my head? Because I wrote an article for the league winners about 3 hours ago stating pretty much word for word what you just said about Sam Howell. Right down to who his wide receiver 3 was. That's why it was fresh in my head. Otherwise, I'd have been like, I don't know who the hell the wide receiver 3 is.
I knew who it was just because I took him late in a 22-round best ball draft, and I was like, but I couldn't remember. I remembered the Samuel part. I couldn't remember the Curtis part.
Yeah, I only remembered, right. Like I said, because I wrote pretty much what you just said. I wrote an article on that about an hour ago. He is going as QB 30 overall, 181st. So once again, he is probably on waivers in most of your 1 QB leagues. For 1 QB, I don't know. Maybe he stays there. I'm not sure if I'm high enough on him that I want him in a 1 QB league. He's definitely streamable. He's definitely someone I want as a second quarterback in Superflex. What do you think about him in this range? He's pretty much free.
Yeah, that's why I think he's going to break out, because nobody expects it. But he's entering a system that, Taylor Heineke had some games. Carson Wentz had some game. I mean, the potential is there. And one of the things, I'm a dynasty player, and I think in terms of dynasty quite a bit. So I do more research on younger players. So a guy like Howell that's coming into his second season kind of intrigues me. And I was watching him last year. I studied him before the rookie drafts last year. In redrafts, obviously, like I wouldn't have him on a roster in redraft leagues, but in superflex leagues and in dynasty, I think he's an absolute must-have. And we're definitely kind of missing that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I have him. The league I have him in is a dynasty league, and I kind of punted on quarterback. I traded away my quarterbacks in a rebuild. So I'm stacked at quarterback, but the problem is they're all first or second year quarterbacks. So I'm hoping Sam Howell might break out here for me and give me a usable QB this year.
I'm waiting on Lance and Howell.
Yeah. Oh, geez, that's dicey. But like you said it right, though. As far as redraft goes, single QB is probably not on your radar unless things get really bad. Or things go really well for him and you pick him up. He's probably not draftable, but he certainly is in 2 QB. I believe.
And best ball.
Yes, I believe I'm in a league right now where we're doing an auction style draft, and I have a bid on him. It's a deep vampire league, and I believe I have a bid on him currently. So he's someone I even have there. That's obviously Superflex.
Yeah, very
God.
Higher floor than I think we're giving him credit for, just because of his rushing ability.
We will cap it off with your bust. Minnesota running back Alexander Madison, rushing yard projection of 946.8 rushing yards with 8 touchdowns. He has a projection of 32 receptions, 219.3 receiving yards, and 1.6 receiving touchdowns, projected to be RB18. Can you tell me why you are out on him? And you're going to have to take it here for about 30 seconds while you explain it, because something came crashing down in the other room, and I want to make sure my kid's not dead. So take 30 seconds or a minute here and tell us why you're out on Madison, please. I'll be right back.
So the RB18 is a little bit high. I see him on Fantasy Pros as RB21 and 57 So right in the middle of the 5th round in PPR drafts. I have him more as a running back 35, 36. I would take Brian Robinson over him. I would take David Montgomery over him, James Cook, Rashad Penny, Khalil Herbert. All of those guys I would actually be looking at instead of Madison. I'm fading him pretty hard. The fact of the matter is that Dalvin Cook had great seasons in Minnesota, and Alexander Madison is not Dalvin Cook. He's not a very effective runner. He basically has been below the 50th percentile in many major metrics, including yards per carry and things like that throughout his career, and that's with limited time. He hasn't had a whole lot of workload, and he wasn't good when he was getting the work. So he might be able to, put together a season where if they run the ball enough and he's gaining 3.9 yards per carry, that could push him into some kind of rosterable level. But I'm not paying that price for him when there's 6 to 8 guys that I would much, much rather have. And I think everybody that drafts Madison this year is going to be very disappointed. And the people in Dynasty that have been waiting for Cook to leave so that Madison can ascend, I think they're all going to be really disappointed as well.
Yeah, especially with his age now. But I swear, you quoted on Sam Howell. You must have. I feel like you quoted directly the Sleepers article I posted earlier, and now I feel like your Alexander Madison is quote is exactly what I said earlier in my bust. Literally, when Dalvin Cook was out, he was very inefficient, and he literally volumed his way to relevance, which is fine. He could pull a Najee Harris and volume his way to a low-end RB2 finish here, but I'm not taking him with almost the top 50 pick.
Right, and he's
overall. No,
he's age 25 right now, which is not. Don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that he's over. Obviously, the drop off doesn't start for another couple years, but he hasn't done anything until his age 25 season. Josh Jacobs had been in the league for 3-4 years and had his best year at age 25.
Well, I don't know. For me, with running backs in Dynasty, unless I think I'm in a win now and I need them, I'm typically trying to sell at 26, 27. So if I'm a Madison owner and he puts up big numbers this year, I'm probably cashing out as soon as the season ends and selling high on a 26-year-old running back who, if he does well, will probably have his career best season this year.
Right. You can make an argument in Dynasty that he might actually, if he does anything to prove his ADP out and finish in the top 24 running backs this year, if he does that, he still would be viable as a Dynasty asset for the next couple of years. But the fact of the matter is he hasn't done that, even when other people in his same backfield were producing better than he was when he was getting less work. So there's no reason to believe that he's going to improve upon that. He needs 250 to 300 carries this year if he's going to do that. And I don't see the Vikings running the ball as much as he's going to need to be that volume guy. And he's not a pass catcher. So I think the 32 receptions is, I think that's pretty fair, but I don't think he's going to go much over that. And that's not really going to propel him into any kind of PPR success. So.
No, I agree 100%. And it's the same argument that I'm out for Tony Pollard on. These guys, they're in Dynasty anyways. They're like 25, 26 years old as it is. They've been in the NFL for 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is I think this would be Madison's 5th year, Pollard's 4th year. They've done essentially nothing. I don't want a running back who's been 4 years in the league and this is his first crack at it because the aging veteran was moved on from, but for financial reasons. No thanks. Like if he was this good, he would have beat out Dalvin Cook last year. He didn't beat out Dalvin Cook. He played when Cook was hurt. At least Pollard made an attempt and it looked like he usurped Ezekiel Elliott. He didn't beat out Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was just let go for financial reasons. All season, while Cook was on the team, Cook was the lead back when Cook was healthy. He was by far the better of the two. So I'm really low on Madison, and I want nothing to do with him at this price. So,
Yeah, there have been a long string of running backs who we thought as dynasty owners, okay, they're just biding their time. When the guy in front of them leaves, it's going to be their time. Kareem Hunt, Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard, Deonta Foreman. There are so many of them, and then once it happens, Foreman's a special case, you know. But when it happens, they don't. They're just not good, and there's a reason that they were the running back 2 on their team. It's because they weren't good enough to be the running back 1. So why would we expect that to happen now?
Absolutely. All right. Well, that's a wrap. Would you like to tell everyone one more time where they can find you and your work?
All right. One more time. At Big Boned FFB on Twitter. Big Boned the Fantasy Burn on Substack. And my work's going to start dropping on Friday on dynastyprosfootball.com, which can also be found on Twitter at dynastyprosff. And if you're into sketch comedy or stand-up comedy and you're in the Sacramento area, come on out to some open mics or go to the Comedy Spot and watch the set, and you'll see me there.
All right. Well, that concludes Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts with either Brandon Boone or Brendon Booth. I'm not sure which one of the two it was.
Both of us.
But somebody was on this show, and they helped me with Sleepers, Breakouts, and Busts. I think I can remember my name. That's Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist. And don't laugh, I don't always get my name right. Same with the podcast. This has been the Mad Science Lab podcast. Thanks again for Brendon for joining me. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Take care and have a good night.